For as long as anyone in the galaxy can remember, the star charts have been a point of pride, a symbol of cosmic community. Every star, every planet, every glowing nebula from one end of the known universe to the other is painstakingly mapped out. Except for one spot. There's a single, nagging hole in the map. A patch of inky blackness right where our little solar system is supposed to be. The galactic map just ends. And the weirdest part? Nobody asks why. Now, let's be clear, this isn't some failure of our telescopes. Our own projects, like Cosmos Web or ESA's Euclid mission, show a universe packed with galaxies in every direction. There isn't a big empty splotch on our maps, but we aren't talking about our maps. We're talking about the legends, the stories passed down for millennia in the Galactic Concordance. And those stories speak of a boundary. Not one marked by fleets or weapons, but by a chilling, unspoken agreement: don't cross, don't ask, don't even look. For 1,000 generations, everyone followed that rule. Until someone broke it. The story of why that rule broke starts with a tragedy. The Cthar were once a magnificent people, artists who could weave light and surf on gravitational waves. Their ships were beautiful, looking like giant seashells sailing between the stars. But they made a very, very bad enemy. An enemy they called the Scourge. The Scourge wasn't an army. It was a plague. A swarm of living, mechanical horrors that stripped entire systems bare, leaving nothing but cold silence. For 50 years, the Cthar were in a fighting retreat, watching their worlds get eaten and their entire culture shrink down to what they could save on their fleeing ships. They were tough, they were smart, but it wasn't enough. On the bridge of the Star Weaver, the last Cthar Ark ship, an old lorekeeper named Xyler watched the tactical map, his 3 hearts sinking. He was ancient, his once colorful shell faded to a pearly gray, and he was now watching his entire civilization die. Behind them, the Scourge was a tide of monstrous, organic-looking ships swallowing the stars. Ahead of them, there were only 2 ways to go. They could turn and fight, going out in one last blaze of glory. Or they could do something so unthinkable, so against every scary story they'd ever been told, that no one had ever actually tried it. On the map, the Scourge was a burning red cancer. And just past the Cthar's position was the stark, empty black of the Forbidden Zone. The place the maps pretended didn't exist. Fleetmaster Xyler's voice was a dry rasp. They'll be on us in 3 days. The drives are shot. The kids are starving. Fleetmaster Grynn, a younger Cthar still in his prime, just stared at the void on the chart. Everything he'd ever learned screamed at him to stay away. The legends were crystal clear. Ships that go in, don't come out. They just vanish. The stories were ancient, warning of a species so chaotic and dangerous that the galaxy decided it was easier to just pretend they weren't there. A species called humans. They're just stories, Lorekeeper Grynn said, trying to sound more confident than he felt. Fairy tales. What could possibly be worse than the Scourge? Xyler turned his ancient, tired eyes to his fleetmaster. There are things worse than a quick death, Grynn. There are things that don't just break your body, but your mind, and the very rules of the universe. But when you're desperate enough, you'll try anything. The sounds of hungry children on the ship were a much more real threat than any old legend. With a shudder, Fleetmaster Grynn gave the order. Change course. Take us into the void. May the ancestors forgive us. As the last few hundred battered Cthar ships turned towards the blackness, a dead silence fell over the fleet. They were running from monsters, and now they were flying right into the monster's den, hoping for a mercy the rest of the galaxy was too scared to even ask for. Crossing into the Forbidden Zone wasn't what they expected. There was no barrier, no warning lights, no patrol ships. One moment, the Star Weaver was in familiar space. The next, it wasn't. The starlight changed. It looked flat and old. The whole universe seemed to be groaning, like it was under some kind of invisible strain. Report! Grynn's command cut through the quiet. Sensors are acting up, Fleetmaster, the navigator stammered. I'm getting weird temporal readings. They're small, but they're everywhere. The laws of physics are fraying at the edges here, Xyler whispered, looking at a small, decorative gravity spinner on his desk. It had spun perfectly for hundreds of years. Now, it was starting to wobble. The IT was a deeply creepy feeling. To a spacefaring people, the laws of physics were everything. Here, in human space, it felt like the universe itself was holding its breath. For 3 days, they floated in the eerie silence. But the scariest part? The Scourge, the swarm that had chased them across the galaxy, stopped dead in its tracks. It wouldn't follow them in. What in the universe could possibly scare the Scourge? On the 4th day, they found a clue. A debris field. But this was different. As they got closer, the Cthar crew stared at their screens in horror. The wreckage was from a legendary warship of an empire that died 10,000 years ago. But it wasn't shot up. It looked disassembled. Its armor was peeled back like an onion. Its frame was bent into impossible shapes that shouldn't exist. The engine core was just gone. Not blown up, just plucked out. Xyler pulled up the ship's log. It was broken and corrupted, but they got the last few moments. The powerful fleet had seen the blank spot on the map and thought it was an unclaimed prize. The final recording was from the captain, his voice a distorted scream. They aren't fighting us. They're taking us apart. The numbers. The laws. It's all wrong. It's all. The log cut out. There was no mention of a battle, no human ships, just pure confusion and terror from being, it seemed, completely and utterly dismissed. The Kthar pushed on, their fear turning into a cold, hard knot in their stomachs. They found more wreckage. A fleet of bioships, dissolved down to their skeletons. A scout from a machine race, its memory banks wiped and replaced with a single, repeating paradox: the cage is the key. The key is the cage. Then they saw it. Not a planet or a star, but a structure. It was so big it was hard to even look at, and it seemed to be built out of pure darkness and captured gravity. It was a cage, a massive, mind-bending framework built around a single, boring-looking yellow star in the distance, the star humans called Sol. And inside this cage, something was thrashing. Even as their sensors failed, they got a glimpse of the prisoner. It was a storm of pure chaos, a tear in reality itself. It was a creature of pure hunger. Tendrils of anti-existence lashed out, hitting the inside of the cage and making space itself seem to flinch. And Xyler, the lorekeeper, finally got it. He remembered the oldest Kthar stories, from before the Galactic Concordance. They talked about a cosmic parasite that ate reality, an ancient evil named the Scourge. The things that had been hunting them weren't the Scourge. They were just its spawn, little pieces that had leaked out over millions of years. The real Scourge was here, locked up. And its jailers were humanity. The blank spot on the map wasn't to keep people out. It was to keep this thing in. The Forbidden Zone wasn't a border, it was a quarantine sign a billion light-years wide. The galaxy didn't shun humanity out of fear of them. It did so out of a deep, terrified respect for what they were doing. They weren't hiding from the galaxy. They were protecting it. Just as they realized this, 5 ships appeared out of the darkness. They were small, brutally simple, and pitch black. They didn't send a message or power up their weapons. They just surrounded the Kthar fleet with an air of absolute authority. A single message bloomed in the mind of every Kthar at once: you are lost. You are afraid. You don't understand what this place is. An image appeared on the main screen. It was a human woman, with gray hair at her temples and a look of exhaustion on her face that seemed older than the stars. She wore a simple, dark uniform with no rank. Behind her, there was no crew, just the silent, swirling image of the caged Scourge on a display. Fleetmaster Grynn was stunned. He'd expected monsters. He got a tired-looking woman who felt like the definition of duty. My name is Eva Rostova, the thought voice continued, calm and steady. I'm the warden of this watch. My people have held this line for 100,000 of your years. We built this cage back when your ancestors were just discovering fire. The truth hit the Kthar with the force of a supernova. The old warnings, the fear, it was all real. They had just gotten the story completely wrong. Humanity wasn't in exile. They had chosen this. They'd taken on a job so huge the rest of the galaxy couldn't even imagine it. The things you ran from, Warden Rostova's thought came again, are splinters. Echoes. They're what slips through the cracks in reality that even we can't completely patch. We fight them constantly. Here, at the source. Grynn finally found his voice. We didn't know. We were desperate. Please, forgive us. The warden's expression didn't change, but they all felt a wave of understanding. Desperation is part of life. We know that better than anyone. You've seen the truth. Now you have a choice. The offer was laid out in their minds. It was simple and terrifying. 1. The humans would fix their ships, give them food and fuel, and lead them back to the border. They could leave, but they had to swear to never tell anyone what they saw. They could go back to their lives, and the lie that protected the galaxy would continue. 2. They could stay. They could live on a planet in the Sol system that the humans kept ready for this exact situation. A sanctuary for anyone who stumbled on the truth. In return, they would help. Their knowledge, their skills, everything would go toward the endless, thankless job of keeping the cage locked and watching the darkness. They could stop running and join the watch. Xyler looked at Grynn, and for the first time in ages, he saw the warrior's fire replaced by something new: awe. The Kthar had been running from a ghost, while humanity had been wrestling the real monster in total, selfless silence. Their whole lives had become about survival. About running away. Here, they were being offered a purpose. "We were builders, Warden," Xyler said, his voice now strong. "We were artisans. We wove light. Maybe we could learn to weave the bars of a cage." A flicker of something, the first real emotion they had seen, crossed Warden Rostova's face. It was the slightest hint of a weary smile. "Very well," the final thought came. "Welcome to the watch, Lorekeeper. We have work to do." The 5 human ships shifted, guiding the battered Kthar fleet not like prisoners, but like new allies. They moved past the terrifying, giant cage, toward a small, blue-green gem of a planet. A world that felt alive, peaceful, and impossibly strong. A planet called Earth. The Kthar, no longer refugees, had run into the one place they were told to fear most. And in the heart of that supposed darkness, they didn't find monsters. They found guardians. They found hope. And they finally understood why the galactic map just stops. It's not a void. It's a monument. A silent tribute to the wardens who stand watch in the dark, asking for nothing, only that the rest of the galaxy gets to sleep in peace. If you enjoyed this journey into the secrets of the galaxy, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe for more sci-fi stories that explore humanity's place in the cosmos. And tell us in the comments, if you were the Kthar, would you leave, or would you stay and join the watch?